Merry Christmas, everyone. Trump just said Merry Christmas as well, and look what he said. He said Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada, whose citizens are taxed too high, but if Canada was to become our 51st state, their taxes would be cut by more than 60%. Sounds pretty good.
Does sound pretty good. America's neighbors to the north are hopping on the MAGA train. I've heard they call themselves Maple MAGAs. Some Canadians jumping at President-elect Trump's offer of huge tax cuts if they become the 51st state. We shall see. Kevin O'Leary, chairman of O'Leary Ventures, Mr. Wonderful, joins us now. Kevin, you are a man from the north. This is your native land. What are you hearing? Is this for real? What are you hearing from people up there?
More than half of Canadians, there's 41 million of them, want to know more, want to understand what the proposal really is, because the concept of an economic union has been bandied around for 40 years. And it makes sense because the resources Canada have, the U.S. needs, particularly power and water. But there's something else. You know, we've been talking about the border between Canada and the United States. That's not the problem. The Pentagon is worried, and has been for decades, about the northern border where China and the USSR are. And we had NORAD decades ago, but China was a nothing burger back then. Now they're a serious problem. And I think in this kernel of an idea, and yes, maybe it was a joke to start, there is something great here to be done, because if you figured out a way to put these two countries together, it would be the most powerful country on earth, the most powerful military on earth, the most powerful in resources. And no adversary anywhere would mess with it. That's the prize.
Yeah. Let's start with this idea that this is just the beginning of negotiations. People are talking about it. I want to just throw up a survey. They actually polled Canadians about this already. And this is what Canadians said about becoming the 51st state. 13% said yes, so there is a crowd there. 82% said no. But Kevin, what you're saying is maybe it doesn't have to be about taking the land. Maybe you can broker some kind of an economic union. That's what you want to help do, right?
Yeah, that poll is irrelevant. The opportunity is combining strengths. You don't have to sell the country. You don't have to even merge it. But you can create a union where you put together the things that matter: a common currency, a common passport, free-flowing trade across the border, particularly in energy. And think about what that means. Right now, the U.S. grid is tapped out. You can't find a gigawatt of electrical power. There's unlimited power in Canada. And even Eric Schmidt said that at Google, because they're concerned about building data centers. All of these opportunities exist. Now, unfortunately for Trump, these ministers are going down to talk to him, Mar-a-Lago, are going to get wiped out in 90 days in a national election. Trudeau is immensely unpopular, and Canadians cannot wait to get rid of him. So this may have to wait from an official standpoint, but many Canadians are interested in understanding more about how we could push this idea forward, and I'm one of them. I think this is a great idea, and I think the potential is massive, and the opportunity is huge. And I think at the end of the day, Canadians and Americans, their DNA is the same in terms of what they believe in: freedom. They fought in multiple wars together. I say let's make this happen one way or another and end up the strongest entity on earth. I'm worried about China. I really am. I think we're in the beginning of a long economic war. And if we're stronger and protecting the northern border and really making it hell for them around the world with our philosophy of freedom and commerce and strength, that's a good thing.
Are you going down to Mar-a-Lago?
I'd love to go down to Mar-a-Lago. You know, I'm obviously interested in it because I do business on both sides of the border. And I'm going to the inauguration. I'm excited about it. I have a lot of projects in both countries. I work with senators and governors, and I walk the aisles of the Hill all the time, as I do in Ottawa. You can't do business anymore unless you're working with leadership in both countries. So I'm a big advocate of figuring out how to get this thing together.
Well, if you can get it together, Kevin, please give us the scoop. We want to break it with you right here.
Look, I'm a very rational guy. I could make this happen with nobody be unhappy about it.
I bet you could. Big ideas, but exciting times. Kevin O'Leary, happy holidays.
So is Canada going to become the 51st state? Let's talk about it on an Azimuth podcast. My name is Barrett McNabb. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. Plus, I don't even think it would be a good 51st state. I think you would split those up into 9 states and then have them integrate, because that would be one huge state. But how did this happen? Well, Donald Trump has been talking about tariffs and is talking about levying tariffs 25% on both Mexico and on Canadian goods. Obviously, both countries are like, hey, what's going on? Trump is doing this because this has been an unfair trade imbalance for the United States, where the United States has trade deficits with multiple countries. The biggest one is China. But still, when he said that he was going to slap a tariff on the Canadian goods, Justin Trudeau went down to Mar-a-Lago to talk to Trump. And just as a joking, he called him governor and said, you could be the 51st state. And it became this little running joke, and Trudeau went back to Canada. But then he kind of lambasted Trump on the idea of the 50th state and not the idea of tariffs. And Trump tweeted back either on his True Social or on X. I don't recall which one, but said, hey, calm down, Governor Trudeau. And so that kind of, got this thing going, that, talking about the 51st state. Now, again, it's not going to happen, but it is kind of interesting because that poll where was only 13% and 87% said no, 13% said yes. It's interesting where they took that poll. If they took that poll in Quebec, I bet that's where you get the 87% no. If they had taken that poll in British Columbia on the far western side of Canada, where Vancouver is, you might have gotten a higher result. Before my father passed away, he lived in Blaine, Washington, which is right at the border. In fact, there's the Peace Arch that's there just outside of Blaine, and it talks about it's a monument to the world's longest undefended border. And so the customs facility is right there, and you go further north on the main highway there, and you hit Vancouver. So my father's next door neighbor, they were actually Canadian, and they were liberals. They were liberal Canadians, and they often pontificated on why Canada is not part of the United States yet. They said, look, we think it's going to happen. It's a matter of time when. And to Kevin O'Leary's point, Mr. Wonderful, Canada has water, and the United States is desperately in need of water in multiple states, the electricity, but also in natural resources as well. If you look at Canada, it's one of the largest countries in the world. I think it's second to Russia, but still, as far as landmass. But still, when you look at it, there's hardly anybody in the country. It's a very small population, and they're mostly scattered on the east and west coast. And you have, you have various, huge tracts of land, and it's an amazing untapped natural resource. If you couldn't imagine that you have Alaska and all the resources that are there, and you just continue east all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, it's going to have the same types of resources and oil and things like that Alaska has, and it just would be just an amazing opportunity on both sides of the border if we did become one nation. Now, here's the big problem. Canada is socialized, right? They have a lot of socialism programs, and so they would need to be reintroduced to pure capitalism, and to make sure that the government is not spoon feeding you like they do in Canada. So they would have to have a little bit of a re-education on how capitalism and free markets work and things like that, because they have a lot of social programs that border on same as the socialism that you have inside some of the healthcare systems of Europe and things like that. But still, this would be a windfall for both countries. This is one of those things that it would be a win-win. The Canadian military is already integrated and utilizes most of the hardware that we have in the United States. They use the F-18, they use the Stryker. No, they have some of their own stuff that they've purchased from other countries. They even attempted to make their own in-house fighter jet, and it never did did come to fruition. But still, they're linked in with NORAD. They utilize the Link 16 system to have aircraft communications and things like that. So they are already integrated into our society. They just drink a lot more maple syrup than we do. In fact, that they drink shots of maple syrup. So I don't know if I'd ever be able to get used to that because I'm not a big sugar person. But still, this was very interesting to look at. And I know Trump did it initially as a joke, but it has legs. It has legs, and there is interest on both sides of the border. Now, of course, Justin Trudeau is going to say no because he doesn't want to give up power and become a governor. But still, as an initial first step, I think it got the conversations rolling, and I think that's what Donald Trump wanted to do is to get conversations going, because negotiations start when somebody says something. So, what do you think? Should Canada become part of the United States? I don't think of it, should it be the 51st state, or should it be broken up into the province they have, and each one of those provinces becomes a state? So tell me in the comments below what you think about this. I think it's pretty interesting to talk about. It probably will never happen in the next 50 years, but probably within the next 100 years, I can definitely see this happening. So thanks so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned out of these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.